Well, hello. That's me again. It is the 13th of August. It is Saturday, and let's get to it immediately and let's not procrastinate. Here's the thing. Good old Henry Kissinger decided to remind us all, and God bless his soul, that he's still alive and kicking. And he produced the Captain Obvious type thing about the situation globally. And that's what he does. He speaks about global things. He obviously doesn't bother himself with details. And he explains here that how the world was brought to the edge of war in his interview to Wall Street Journal. And as it is summarized there, he says that a lack of visionary leadership is to blame, the veteran statesman says. The issue here about the visionary leadership is easily resolved and described. I am on the record from the get-go for many years. United States doesn't produce statesmen. Simple as that. Doesn't. You cannot produce statesmen in the basically what liberal arts environment which exists throughout the America's Ivy League and other universities and programs which try to be something akin to the Ivy League. Mostly what those people study and they come out with are crap. All of it, pretty much, from the way the history is being taught nowadays to all this pseudoscience of the political science. American diplomats, quote unquote, are butt of jokes around the world. They are utterly incompetent and absolutely uncultured people whose only task is to dictate conditions of Washington without any regard to the reality around them, and that is why they begin increasingly to look stupid. So, and when Kissinger states that, oh my God, the world has been brought to the basically brink of the war, obviously war between Russia and the United States and United States against China, one has to really start asking the question. What kind of war Mr. Kissinger has in mind? The reason I am so specific about is because while I respect Mr. Kissinger and his reminiscence about him being the enlisted communications guy during 1994, especially Battle of the Bulge, and yeah, I understand these are very important and life-defining, so to speak, experiences, but I mean, he has to understand Henry Kissinger, the same as people who really praise him and his sycophants, that basically I didn't encounter normal understanding of the war anywhere, literally. I mean, if you look attentively at all those people who try to present themselves as realists, I'm not talking about the crazy, absolutely mad neocons who have nothing but psychological and psychiatric issues and need to be looked at by shrinks. But if you look at those people who even try to present themselves as America's realists, they still come down to basically America's exceptionalism with a different flavor, and most of them, including people like Andrew Basevich, for example, and his Quincy Institute, and people who write there, or let alone such clowns like Anatoly Levin, who passes for some reason as the Russia scholar in United States. But Andrew Basevich is a colonel, okay, former colonel of the AC Army. Evidently, those people still cannot grasp what real war is. Neither can Kissinger, because when they speak about war, what war do they mean? Will the United States go and escalate towards the nuclear threshold, a nuclear exchange between United States and Russia? Well, it's not excluded, of course, considering the fact that basically what we have today in Washington, D.C., especially in top brass, top echelon, are primarily ideologues, most of whom never served a day in their uniform, and they don't understand even what modern nuclear exchange with Russia is. They don't have the grasp of the fact that they will cease to exist. Their families, their property, their Washington D.C. will be wiped out. It will be flattened, and so will be primarily most of their first military bases on the territory of the United States, and then of course key industrial items, so to speak, and United States, for all intents and purposes, will simply cease to exist. Of course, if Russia goes all in, then the United States will exist physically, stop existing physically. And I'm not going to go into the issue of the anti-ballistic missile defense. And I already stated a lot about it, because Russia certainly is building and already has partial capability in place to mitigate even the massive attack, and probably within the next 5 to 10 years, Russia will have a very reliable anti-ballistic missile shield. But that has everything to do with the rocketry and air defense and air missiles, air defense and anti-missile systems, and that's a separate issue. But if they mean this war, as Kissinger thinks, well then sure, we will all die. Some of us will die with the horrible, torturous deaths. Others will perish immediately, but sure, this could be arranged. And actually, Vladimir Putin is was very specific, and Russia is not going to initiate it, because there is no first strike option in Russia except for the very specific Articles 26-27, which describe the conditions under which Russia may use the nuclear weapons when the existence of the Russian state is under the real direct threat. But that's the whole point. If Henry Kissinger thinks about the war, which is conventional primarily, then again, hey, don't quote me on that, although recall the title of my first book, which was written in 2017, and it is called Losing Military Supremacy. But don't quote me on that. I could be who knows what, I could be a very nasty guy with agenda to push, quote Mr. Colonel Douglas McGregor, who recently states, like 2 days ago, that basically the United States cannot fight the war. It's not ready. Its armed forces not ready. So how does Kissinger think United States will prosecute the war conventionally in Europe? We heard the news 2 days ago that 101st Division, Airborne Division, have sent the whole 2,400 soldiers to Europe, which will be spread in the groups between of 600 to 400, basically battalions. We're looking at probably around 4 battalions, will be spread over Romania, Poland, what have you. So if you think so that those 2,400 members of the 101st Airborne make an impression on Russia, sure, in terms of laughing, and but that's the whole point. The United States doesn't have armed forces which can conduct serious, large-scale operation against Russia in the Eastern Europe. So thus they cannot create the direct threat of the existence of Russian state, and because of that Russia is not going to use nuclear weapon, because Russia can defeat them conventionally. And again, as I constantly on the record, how is Henry Kissinger going to arrange this war? How he going to supply it? How he going to preposition forces? Can he calculate the same as people who, admire him? I don't, but many people do. Can he calculate the required force to crush those damn Russians and, throw them out of Ukraine, or whatever the inflated and inflamed imagination of the American political class thinks Russians are going to do? I don't know, The problem is, unless United States constitutes or reinstitutes the draft, good luck with that, and then arms and trains those masses of troops and able to move those masses of troops across the Atlantic, which is the whole other story altogether. I don't think so many will reach Europe. But how is this war going to happen? How is it going to happen? I think so even those crazies and, well, let's call it the way it is, batshit crazies, neocons, they can understand, some of them at least, that this is just basically, throwing the cannon fodder into the meat grinder, and obviously they are very sensitive people in terms of domestic policies, because they like to be in the power, they like to be re-elected or reappointed to their positions, and obviously when you have around 1,000 KIAs daily, well, your political regime not gonna, exist much longer, especially in such country as the United States. And that's why when Kissinger states that, oh yeah, there is, brink of the on the brink of the war between the United States and Russia, yes, the only war which is capable is nuclear war, because of the military weakness of the United States, of which I warned from the get-go, and of which I warned that it is a very destabilizing factor, because obviously it's a very unsure country, which sustained enormous amount of the military humiliations as of lately. Well, lately in historic terms, we're talking about 25 years. It is the country which doesn't have conventional force which really can perform any kind of the appropriate duty in terms of defeating, their enemies such as Russia. So what's left? Taiwan? I think so. China received enough PR shock for it to consider and really starting to, how to say it, reinforce its connections to Russia. And yeah, theoretically, even considering the, as I already stated many times, considering the very shallow nature of the strait between Taiwan and Formosa Strait, and between China and mainland China and Taiwan, but once you go beyond the Taiwan western shores, you will see in the isobath map that the depths, so to speak, begin to grow tremendously, thus providing a very excellent operational environment for the submarines. And then who knows, can the United States start something around Taiwan? I don't know, probably. And again, the only way the United States can attain some kind of the victory, so to speak, even if it's going to be the Pyrrhic victory or it will be very blooded, is of course around China, in South China Sea, where it can show to public, you see, here we are, although we lost this and that, we at least, just kind of showed China its place. Is it possible? Possible. Scenario is definitely, I'm sure, played by many in the general staffs around the world. But other than that, how's the United States going to fight it? I don't know. I don't think so. Kissinger knows it either. And if he talks about nuclear war, then, well, what can I say? Then probably let it damn happen and be done with this. Because obviously the way things develop in the United States right now, they are leading directly to disintegration or collapse of the country. And a very good friend of mine, I'm not going to be telling his name, he's a very good friend of mine, and he's American, he's former officer, senior officer, but he's now retired. He is involved big time into the serious extraction and processing industries, real economy. And he attends many of those conferences and seminars on the issues related to the resources and how to process them, how to create something out of them. That means industrialists, serious industrialists. No, not the IT guys. And again, please don't feel insulted, IT guys. You are very important. But when I'm saying this is not IT industry, this is a real one. A lot of machinery, a lot of real science and all that. And he just tells me last time he was in Bretton Woods, no less, in the conference of those industrialists, and he says, you know what, everybody knows that dollar is done. And so the all industrial plans or all industrial scenarios are being played around the follow on the US dollar, whatever comes after it. And there are many smart people in America, make no mistake, I by no means try to degrade United States intellect. There's still a lot of smart, wonderfully educated people, but they obviously are not the ones who are in power, but they do exist in large numbers, and actually maybe that's the future hope for the United States if it wants to prevent itself from complete collapse. And that's what is this all about. People understand that the US dollar is down, and that means automatically that the US economy is down. And when you look at this and you begin to understand that the degree of the America's military weakness is not understood by many people still, including by many officers, people with a military background, who begin to, pretend that they understand that, oh my gosh, those weapons and everything should change the outcome of the Ukraine. They cannot. They cannot. And that's where we get to after we discuss this Mr. Kissinger, I want to get a little bit into the thing which is very much along the lines of my lecture, which I did, you probably remember, about a few months ago, I don't remember, you can look it up, about contusion and concussion. And I am on the record. I can talk to any American officer from bottom to top that, again, and I just look it up, it's everywhere, that America and American military professionals, well, they may get it, but they will not be able to still internalize it, because you need to experience it and you need to have the long historical record of fighting like this, which America doesn't have. That they don't understand what modern war and warfare with peer or better than peer power is. And Task and Purpose, I don't go and read them very often, once in a while. About months ago, they published this. They state that U.S. volunteers fighting in Ukraine face a unique psychological toll. It is published by and written by Jana Mantua, who is the one of the big honchos in DoD and Veterans Affairs regarding the specifically psychological issues, PTSDs, and things of this nature. And before I read you up some things from here, from her article, I want to stress again, if you look back to my video on contusion or concussion, you have to understand, and I speak about it there, that PTSD accumulates in a very bizarre ways, and but when you are constantly pummeled with this constant, nauseating, non-stop shocks. Some of them, for example, if you have the shells falling about half a kilometer away from you or 200 meters away from you, it's still loud and shakes you. But of course, if something falls within like 100 meters from you, you will be shaken. And when you are subjected to this shaking and constant shocks, you accumulate PTSD. And let me tell you one very interesting thing which many people don't understand. For example, if you serve on the high-speed ships or the small displacement combat ships, like I did, and they were one of my ships I served were there, 320 tons full displacement, still 145 foot long and armed to the teeth. But there is a reason why they pay you more and why they your service census goes higher, and your 1 year is counted as a year and a half, and under some conditions as year for 2 when you serve on them, because the issue of the sustaining constant shocks. Some of them, you just get used to them. Others, depending on the state of the sea and storm, basically, could be horrendous. They accumulate, they shake you, and you have this progressive deterioration of your brain functions. And when you are under the direct artillery fire, let alone under something like TOS, Solntsepyok, or things of this nature, if you survive, you are beginning to feel sick. And eventually you are shaken, literally, like those famous horrible stories of the nannies shaking poor kids, toddlers, into death. That's what happens to you. Your brain begins to literally liquefy. You sustain something like several fights with Mike Tyson and being knocked out for many times. And that's what happened with volunteers American volunteers in Ukraine, and that's where she Mantua reads. Look at this, what she talks about, because obviously they sustain a horrendous psychological, psychiatric illnesses, and the first reason for this is the ferocity of the war. This war is not like Iraq or Afghanistan. The fighting is more intense, and volunteers are seeing more combat than ever before while having fewer advantages. Well, and she presents here the quote from one of the former Marines who fights there. Who knows why? I mean, the guy decided to throw his life. Well, it's his issue. He will be killed, or probably he will suffer from PTSD. And here it is. I'm former US military, seen and been around some pretty decent combat before, but not like this. Man, not even close. The Taliban was very amateurish in firefights, and their IDF, if any, wasn't very accurate. Don't get me wrong, the fights were tough and we had some zinger days, but nothing like facing a uniformed enemy. These are jets and drones here, bombing us constantly. Tanks, BTRs, BMPs, everything you can think of, they have brought it here. Here I get to be the guy sneaking around bushes and 3 lines taking pot shots at troops and tanks. And here they all get all the cool vehicles, air cover and IDF. In a weird way, it's given me a new respect for our old enemies. Well, obviously there is one thing which needs to be deciphered here. He didn't fight actually real Russian uniformed enemies. He fights mostly LDNR militias, although many of them are very experienced people, but they are still not full-blown Russian troops. If he would be fighting Russian troops, I don't think so. Regular Russian troops, which are primarily employed in fixing the position of VSU in the north around Kharkov, and in the south near Kherson and Nikolaev. That would have been altogether different story, because obviously the amount of the firepower, including to the operational depth, we're talking several hundred kilometers in case of the real war, the war which Kissinger probably has in mind, he would have been subjected to this pretty much 24/7 non-stop, and that before even he probably would see any troops, which would go after that and mop it up. So, but that's the real war, and obviously after they experienced this, thinking that Afghanistan or Iraq was it, well, and even Vietnam wasn't it. And again, to understand what we're talking about, I will quote Colonel Wilkerson, the former chief of staff of General Colin Powell, who stated in his interview, you can find it on the YouTube, when asked what kind of casualties can we expect in first week when the US Army begins to fight Russians. He said 40,000 first week. So, well, give and takes, probably a third of them will be, I don't know, KIAs, the rest will be wounded and some missing in action. So if you're ready to operate in this war, so that's what it is. And obviously, many of those people from the Western militaries who thought that they were cool dudes in Afghanistan and Iraq, they begin to face a small faction of Russian firepower, and there you go, that's what they have suddenly. All those cool toys and, you know, but it's just the start. Obviously, Mantua also mentions this a very bizarre, which is actually not really bizarre, it's the moral wound, moral destruction of people who obviously don't know what they're fighting for. And of course, some people consider it as the racist, because obviously they begin to kill and see killed the European people, which are white people basically, you know. As well, Russians are white people. Look at me, I'm Russian, I'm 100% Russian. So, and, but they really begin to feel that, oh my God, this is something different, obviously because we don't kill brown people or Asian people, yellow people, you know. So, and they say, oh, it's racist. Well, in some sense it is, obviously, it is racist, because I will not live in Afghanistan or any Muslim country, but it doesn't mean that they're not humans. They're humans. They're humans with their feelings, their loves and hatreds, they, you know, so they are humans. They're like us, you know. But, of course, there is undeniable disassociation. It is one thing for them when they kill those brown people, and then suddenly they kill those white people. For some of them, yeah, it could be a really serious issue. They have this, I don't know, moral trauma, as they say. And that also gives you some explanation why the war, I think, realistically, is not possible in between Russia and United States in Europe, because United States will sustain a catastrophic defeat there, and Russians have no really problems with killing those people who threaten the nation, and that's the history of Russia. Look it up. But this is what I wanted to point you out to. And of course, when this all together accumulates and aggregates throughout you begin to get a horrendous psychiatric disorders, much worse than what you have in when from Afghanistan or what you have from Iraq. This is a completely different game. And yes, when you're shaken so much, it begins to accumulate, even if you're not wounded or, And sometimes, believe me, I know, I've been there, you cannot, sometimes you don't react, you cannot have, proper reaction, and it's over, But when you are subjected to this every day, yeah, that's a completely different story. And yes, you are looking at the serious psychiatric issues, and Task and Purpose just had enough integrity to publish this, then say, yeah, this is what it is, this is how serious it is. And again, they are facing only a fraction of Russian firepower. So, but this is not just it about this war, and this is what I constantly trying to, to explain to people, that what is going on in Ukraine, including the reports of desertions and the whole industry existing in the, for example, eastern areas of Ukraine, where thousands upon thousands, here the Vzglad reports on 7,000 of deserters who pay very serious money to get to the Russian side of the conflict, and that means basically avoiding being drafted in the territorial defense. And there are reports now of the territorial defense fighting the Nazi elements in Ukraine, and who knows what is going on there. But again, as I stated, we are looking at different estimates between 191,000 to 300,000 casualties, a lot of them, hundreds of thousands of KIAs on Ukrainian side, and that basically begins to kind of show in this respect. And obviously, U.S. State Department and U.S. government always, ahead all of us, and they stated that yesterday that they will not recognize annexation of Ukrainian territory to the Russian Federation, no matter what and no matter how. And the Russians say, well, so what? Feel free. Nobody cares what you recognize or you don't. And this is another thing which is has to be understood very clearly, that evidently people who continue to issue this kind of statements, loud statements from the United States, which never come to anything, and primarily are either some reasonable statements which originate in neocon cabal, such as Institute for Study of War. They don't study war. They abuse sinecures there. And, or State Department, those people don't understand America's real stance today in the world and a real position. And again, as I already stated, there is a whole chaos right now in Biden administration, and all those people who now try to decide what we're going to do. They miscalculated. They expected Russia by now being completely in economic disarray and Russian forces being defeated. And, so it's like, and this is not happening. So, okay, they're probably trying to now reorient back to Taiwan, because those people, they don't have not just rear gear, they don't have brains. I mean, they don't understand war, they don't understand how the war is fought. And I'm talking about including people from Pentagon, and many of them anyway. So they obviously don't get it, and that gets us back to, again, Kissinger and those vision. Okay, how about teaching them basics of the real warfare, not all this BS whiteboard theories about, and, and obviously some veterans, US veterans, volunteers, so to speak, who are nothing more than mercs, and mercenaries. But at least they can give some feedback about what it means to fight a real war, and not shooting those, as they call it, brown people and what have you. So, and that brings us to the last, so to speak, uh, episode or segment, if you wish, because this is for the all those military porn guys who right now, and again, there is a huge circle jerk in both pro-Russian and anti-Russian circles of those fanboys on YouTube about, oh my God, look at this, Russians use this, and this is called LMUR, and this is the classic anti-tank, what have you guided missile. It's called the Izdelia 305, which is another Elmur, as they call it. It's a great little missile which with a range of 15 kilometers, which is really good range, and it can fly in 3 different modes. It can fly as fully shoot and forget upon receiving on the targeting. It can fly with the radio commands, or it can be shot in approximate area of the target. Then it looks or recons its target itself, gives the communication to its helicopter, which is primarily Ka-52, Mi-35s, and Mi-8 IM-Tesha, and then people in the helicopter decide what to do with this, how to guide it. It's an amazing weapon. Obviously, it's very smart, and you already saw the use of this. But now, and it also adds to this destruction of this baloney, primarily from people like neocons and people like Anatol Livin, who who will not know the shit from Shinola in military terms. But yeah, it's Russians use a lot of smart munitions, and it's like this missile has been used since 2016 in Syria to a great effect. But many people don't understand that this is not the only smart weapon Russians use. And here's the weapon which somehow, for some reason, kind of went under the radar, although it was used already in Syria to a devastating effect. And that thing, even scarier than this subsonic, is Izdelia 305 or LMUR. And that thing is called Hermes. The Hermes A, it's a basic model which have been used and it's fully shoot and forget missile, which is used by Ka-52s, and it also can be installed on the Mi-8s and Mi-35s. And that weapon can also, it's a fully shoot and forget, it's very smart, it's networked. I think so you can even guide it from different helicopters, but its maximum firing range for basic version is 15 to 20 kilometers, and it's been, again, used tremendously to a tremendous advantage in Syria and now in Ukraine. And here's the thing, unlike this Izdelia 305, which is subsonic, which is about Mach 0.8, Mach 0.9, which is still more than enough, Hermes has a very funny thing about it. Hermes is very high supersonic, which is above Mach 3.5. But this version of Hermes, which is being tested now, and it's I believe it's been already actually in the serial production starting from the earlier this year, this version of Hermes is altogether scary as hell. This is a Hermes 2.0. It is universal thing. It could be installed anywhere, on helicopter, on truck, or ship, BTR, what have you. And that thing, which is based partially on the missile from Panzer S-1 air defense complex, not only it has the range of 100 kilometers, it can accelerate to Mach 0.6, to Mach 6, to Mach 8. It's hypersonic thing, and there is no way you can intercept it in any way. So, and that thing is being used now also in Ukraine, and evidently to a devastating effect. But of course, we will not see all those evidences, so to speak, evidences about all of this use until the operation is over, and then the white books will start pouring, hopefully, from Russian Defense Ministry. I'm still waiting, honestly, especially willing to read on the operations in operations of Russian air defense and Russian air force there, because in terms of the ground operations, it's pretty clear. You look at the map, you look at those points, and you kind of get what is going on, even when you have a very limited knowledge of the real forces involved there, because nobody will tell you, and rightly so. So, and this is what I wanted to tell you today. It's a kind of mixed bag things, but this is one for your weekend. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and those who can afford, support me on Patreon. And hey, did you see today? No math. I'm not going to be doing math for a while for you guys. So, and as always, have the nice rest of your weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.